Well, there were several interesting moments here today, and one of them reflected the different philosophies between Jones and his head coach. McCarthy said he nearly crashed the truck he was driving when Jones called to tell him the Cowboys training camp would be chronicled by the HBO show Hard Knocks. McCarthy then laughed and said once he got the vehicle back on the road that he was all in. But Dan, I think it reflects that Jones is arguably the best marketer in the entire sports world, and McCarthy, like most coaches, values secrecy to the point that, remember last year during the inter-squad game at Cowboy Stadium, he removed all the numbers from the Cowboys jersey. So perhaps Jerry won this argument because he's Jerry, or perhaps it was because McCarthy had very little leverage with the owner after a 6-10 first season in Dallas.
Yeah, I'm sure HBO is going to want those numbers on there once the cameras come on. Once they do, Ezekiel Elliott, one of the prominent players that we'll keep an eye on, coming off a really rough 2020, finished with the fewest rushing yards, fewest touchdowns, and most fumbles he's ever had in a season. Tough year for Zeke. Ed, what are the Cowboys expecting from him this year?
Yeah, following the worst season of his career, Zeke Elliott, two-time rushing champion, dedicated himself to improving his conditioning with a private running backs coach, Josh Hicks, working regularly with him in Dallas to create an opportunity to be more productive. And I think, having Dak Prescott and a healthy offensive line would certainly help as well. Whether he ever has a chance to contend for rushing titles under Mike McCarthy seems unlikely to me, but he can certainly be an invaluable part of a winning team.
Dallas finished third in the NFC East, going 6-10 and struggling with those injuries to Dak Prescott on the offensive line, as Ed just mentioned. Ed, thanks. We're going to have more from you later in the show. Back to Ezekiel Elliott, though. He averaged career lows last year in rushing yards per game and yards per rush. And in total, he had just 16 rushing yards above expectation, which ranked 33rd among the 51 running backs who had at least 100 carries. That is not Ezekiel Elliott level production. Adam, Zeke's buddy, Dak Prescott, the quarterback coming off a significant leg injury. What are you hearing about the Cowboys' plans for him as they start camp?
Dan, that was one of the big headlines that came out of today's press conferences with Jerry Jones, Mike McCarthy, the fact that Dak Prescott is ready for training camp and basically cleared for football activities, will be ready to go, will be out there, will be practicing after that grisly injury that he suffered last year, did sign the big contract. He underwent the right ankle surgery in October, but is healthy, and he will be out there during training camp taking his regular reps, going through drills, and that is a very encouraging sign for a Dallas team looking back to bounce back from the 6-10 season that, as Edward alluded, compromised some of Mike McCarthy's leverage in terms of the Cowboys being on Hard Knocks.
No doubt about that. Tim, when you look at this Cowboys team, obviously the quarterback, Dak Prescott, signs the big contract, always pressure on him. Who do you think is under the most pressure in that building in Dallas?
I think it's Mike McCarthy. And I'm not saying Mike McCarthy is in danger of losing his job, but, Ed Werder, referred to the season a year ago. Adam just mentioned it. And when we look back at his overall coaching record as a head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, people aren't going to say, oh, but Dak was injured that one year, or, oh, they had the distraction of Hard Knocks the next year, or, hey, we're going through a pandemic. No one cares about that stuff when they evaluate a coach. And when you think about why Mike McCarthy is in Dallas, it's because Jason Garrett, even though he won more games than he lost as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, he didn't get them to where they ultimately want to be, which is as Super Bowl champs. And so I think that you go and hire a Super Bowl winning coach so that you aren't 9-7 or 8-8 or 13-3 even, and then get bumped out of the postseason. He's there because they expect to win a Super Bowl. And so I think the pressure is on him because there are many pieces on the offensive side, at least, that are in place for him to have success.
Well, Tim, guess what? If they have a down season, one of the Joneses is not going to go fire another Jones. They've already fired the defensive coordinator in Mike Nolan and replaced him with Dan Quinn. So now the pressure will be on somebody else. And for years, how many years did we go through this where we were wondering about Jason Garrett's future? And it's amazing to me that we're 1 year into the tenure of Mike McCarthy in Dallas, and it already feels like it's going in the same direction as Jason Garrett. Will there be constant attention, constant scrutiny, constant speculation about the head coach? But that's what happens in this league, really, in any city where there's not consistent winning, especially in a city where the family runs the organization, and especially with a team that's under as much scrutiny as America's team, the Dallas Cowboys.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.